Welcome to Living Chassidus. Together, let's live the Chassidus we learn.
Welcome to the shiur, Kuntres HaTefila, starting chapter Gimel, Perek Gimel, chapter 3. Okay, so basically we said in chapter 2 that the way to learn Chassidus, so to speak, is it's not about the learning the subject. That's like the prefatory things you need to do. But the main point of the learning Chassidus is to meditate on it and think about what it's saying, think about and think about all the details of it, being very specific and learning, and that's the way you should learn it. And there's like he says in the summary, knowledge is just a prelude to the meditation. Really, the purpose of the learning is to meditate on it and think about it and see what it means and how we can apply it. Whoever didn't have the merit to listen to yesterday's class from Rabbi Sharon Weiss or shiur, Ferengen, whatever you want to call it, in honor of Tes Kislev, you can go, it's going to be put up on the YouTube channel today. Beautiful talk explaining essentially this, how to learn Chassidus, and how to meditate on Chassidus, how to think Chassidus. Okay, today we'll start chapter 3. Today's chapter 3 is going to talk about, like I already said this a few times, the chapter 3, that's sometimes in the book, he's talking about specific situations that not necessarily apply to us now specifically, but we learn it in general, but we also learn it because we want to understand. It gives us more clarity, more understanding of what the Rebbe Rashab has in mind, and we can see how it applies to us. So basically what we're talking about today is people that they daven, and they daven at length, and they think about ideas, and they try to make like chidush, novel ideas in davening. This means try to make up all these different chidushim, different novel ideas, and basically says it's not a good idea. In general, you shouldn't be doing this. If you've been learning chidush for many years and you're an older person, and you know, then it could be what you're doing is true, but generally, chances are it's not going to be a good idea. And he says if you daven properly, it will come by itself, and that's fine, and those are totally fine. Let's see. Page 42 on the top. Number 3, novel interpretations. In this chapter, the Rebbe refers to a custom prevalent at the time during prayer, which was to innovate explanations in the prayers, according to Chassidus. The Rebbe disapproved of this completely. Unauthentic interpretations. Now, there are those who, and as you can see, this, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I feel like actually this whole chapter is really a bracket. Yep, the whole chapter is actually a bracket. It's pretty funny. So now there are those who, while praying, formulate an original novel interpretations of passages of the prayer text. Understandably, people with more penetrating minds originate interpretations of greater depth, commensurate with their superior intellect. So people are trying to do this, make these chidushim during the davening, make these novel ideas, try to say, learn into the words. What is meaning? What is a chiddush? Is you make a novel interpretation on an idea. So you say, what this pasuk is really saying, or what this verse of Tehillim that we're reading in davening, or Pesukei Zimra or Shema, according to Chassidus, you could say means this, and they're trying to think about these different types of thoughts while they're davening. And he says, so a person that has a greater mind understands Chassidus and things like this. So then his idea will be maybe greater, better, make more sense, things like this. As a result, they become intellectually excited, and their hearts too are drawn somewhat, as explained above. So therefore, when they do this, like, look at this brilliant idea I just figured out, and it's like, it makes so much sense, and they think about, this makes sense, like according to that maimer, it should make sense, and so it feels good. Not just mentally it feels good, but also the heart feels good, and their hearts too are drawn somewhat, explained above. And with this, they fulfill, quote unquote, their obligation to engage in avodah through prayer. And this is their avodah. This is their spending the time, really putting the effort into davening, in order they can make these novel ideas. So he says, but that's not good. Now, besides the truth of these interpretations being very suspect, chances of you making a chiddush like in this way is very highly unlikely, and probably they are unfounded. the soul's excitement is based upon something unauthentic. So therefore, when you get excited from this and you're getting all inspirational, the inspiration is coming from the wrong place because it's coming from something that's not actually real. The harm is especially pronounced when one builds upon it a structure of a particular kavanah. And even worse is if you start to have kavanahs based on this, start to think, so what does that mean? And you start to meditate on certain ideas that you've sort of figured out yourself during prayer or request at the time of davening when you're asking Hashem for something. Since the basis is untrue, because the chances are what you've done, whereas it found it's not necessarily a true thing. Yeah. When the foundation is demolished, the whole edifice topples. So, and therefore, being that it's not essentially true, so even if you're getting excitement, it's not true excitement. It's like getting excitement from the wrong things, so to speak. It's totally off. And then you can't say this means that when you have kavanah, you want to get involved and meditate, and really you should feel it, it should change you. If it's changing you, but it's not coming from the right place, then it's not what we're talking about. At times, the prayer and request themselves may be proper, but the kavanah and the soul's subsequent ecstasy, whether in some specific aspect or in the underlying depth of a general kavanah, is not genuine due to their foundations being false. And like he says in this bracket here, that even though the request themselves, what they're asking or what they're trying to connect to God is a true idea that they should and they want to, and they're doing that right. But the problem is, being that the whole foundation for it is not right, so then it's not good. And therefore everything it comes false. It's like stealing money and then buying a little bit extra. It's nice you want to buy a little bit extra, do a mitzvah, but it's coming from the wrong place. So it's their meditation or their thoughts that they have no ideas they've come up with is making the foundation wrong. Yet aside from the questionable reliability of such novel interpretations, the resulting exhilaration is entirely superficial. And the one that, so to speak, proves that it's not really true. That when they get excited enough, then they act all like excited and all, feeling great. That's not really it's not deep. It's very superficial. Nothing concrete results from it in terms of actual turning from evil and performing good. The excitement doesn't endure; it vanishes, disappearing immediately, and it doesn't last. And a simple way you can test if this idea was good is, how did it make me turn? It's also the same example applies itself to a difference between bitterness and depression. How do you know if your thoughts are good, meaning you're not happy with the situation, not happy with what you're doing in life? How do you know if this thought is a good thought or a bad thought? What does it lead you to do? If it leads you to change, so great. But if it leads you just to be sad and not do anything about it, it's not coming from the right thing. And they're saying, being that these ideas, your novel, you're making up, if it's not true, so you won't actually work on yourself. You won't change. But the whole purpose of davening is not just to daven, but it's also to give you that ability to change yourself. And if you're not actually changing from it, then it's not really true. Being that it's something you've made up yourself. If it's the chassidus you're learning and you're just not applying it, so that's a problem. But it's not true. It's just talking about. Remember that we're talking about people that are making novel ideas themselves. The excitement doesn't endure and vanishes, disappearing immediately. A person with a profound mind may consequently discover deep and wondrous insights, especially when he extends his kavanah over a substantial portion of the prayer text. For example, over one or more psalms or over several blessings. If a person is in there with this idea and he's thinking about it and he's mulling over for a while, and he has a good mind, so he could really come up with good things. Alternatively, he may come up with several novel insights into several places for a single prayer. And it could be coming from one prayer, several different insights. He has all these different ideas. So either you could be having one idea that lasts over a few psalms, or a few ideas in one psalm. The point is, a person is figuring out new ideas. His soul is elevated either way, and it feels good, and his soul is going up, and connecting with these ideas. From his prior material state, a person is uplifted to a refined, sublime one. Generally, this is comparable to an external engraving. So he's getting all refined and he's feeling good and everything's good is happening. Because generally this is very external engraving. It's like just a little outline of the engraving. of temporary duration, i.e., a polishing of the vessel's exterior. However, the uplifting feeling will not last long. In most instances, only a few hours, although possible a half a day or entire day. Such contemplation to be efficacious is hardly possible. For actually to last, it's not going to happen. So even you're doing these things, chances are he's saying it's not going to happen. It's not going to last. It's not going to change. It's not going to work. It's not real. So don't waste your time doing it. This is also in the class of general and peripheral avodah and doesn't constitute divine service at all. So it's not considered divine service. That's the main point. Now, in this latter category, distinction must be drawn, page 44 in the middle. Now, in this latter category, and this latter, what we're talking about now, distinction must be drawn. There are elder chassidim who have studied much chassidus and who understand several subjects clearly and comprehensively. On occasions, when these chassidim originate some explanation on the prayer as mentioned above, their explanation is predicated upon a conceptual principle that they are fully knowledgeable about on account of the prior study. He's saying this is sort of like the exception to the rule is elder chassidim, they've learned a lot of chassidus, and when they come up with these novel ideas, it's based on foundations of chassidus, and it's really ftara. They really know what they're doing. And now too, while pondering the new insight, they contemplate it at length and in detail, and they think about what they're saying, length and details of explained before, how to meditate, based on its underlying conceptual principles, based off what they've learned from chassidus, and that's how they're coming up with this idea. These individuals derive great pleasure from their own new insights, then from meditating on well-established divine concepts that have been explicated by others, and also they enjoy it because it's coming out from them. Meaning they've learned a lot of chassidus, and so it's like, I guess maybe I don't know if they're getting bored of it. It's like thinking about the same thing all over again. But here, it's their own thing. They never thought themselves. They figured it out, so they get a lot of excitement from it. On account of their own participation in its discovery, as explained also, and they like it more. Why? Because they're the ones who made it. So it's personal. The knowledge of a person who appreciates his own foot more than he does the head of someone else. It's like we appreciate our foot more than someone else's head. Meaning, even though it's just a foot and that's a head, but our foot is ours. So it's just even greater. We're more connected to it. So the novel idea that he comes up with, even though there's plenty of chassidus, but this is his novel idea, so he's more connected to it. His own full. Consequently, the subject matter reaches a very settled state within such a person's mind, and so therefore he learns it, he understands it, and really connects this idea that he's figured out. Remember, the preface is this person has learned a lot of chassidus, meaning older, not just in physical years, but also like the amount of learning and the amount of applying the chassidus. So then they come up with ideas themselves similar to what we were talking about before. And the only real difference is they do everything right. It's just that it's theirs versus what they've learned in the Maimon. But its foundations are on the Maimon. It's not anything totally made up. Youthful Chassidim. So that, and essentially that's sort of acceptable, he says. Whereas youthful Chassidim, what are people who have learned a lot of Chassidus? But the youth who haven't been exposed to much Chassidus, and who are unfamiliar with the full breadth of its concepts, their meditation is only superficial and absolutely cannot be considered genuine service. Where if you're a young person, meaning you haven't learned a lot of chassidus, so you should not be doing such a thing. Whatever you come up with, it's not good, wrong, stop doing it. In fact, it is very far from being true of Veda. This is especially true in the very young, whose eyes have not yet been opened to chassidus, and who have barely seen anything. Among them are those who perform such stunts, attempting to find new insights into prayer. They put a lot of effort into it, and this is what they concentrate on. So it seems like just another thing that, like in those days, this was a very big phenomenon going around. So you had like kids. It's sort of nowadays a little bit more like Bachim Yeshiva when they're young and they try to daven ba'aveda. Is all it. Like they don't know, it's like B'Yon Walters. He told me spoke last night, and when I was in Yeshiva with him, he said when he wanted to stop daven ba'aveda, he didn't know what to do. He was like 15 years old. So he started reading the words really slowly. Take a long time. So it's sort of this, it's in the same vein. Maybe this one is a little better, but it's the same vein that they don't have enough chassidus to start doing these things. And this is what they concentrate on. For these people, this practice is a virtual prohibition. He's saying for young people to do such things, it's prohibited. So through this, they damage their soul's capacity to apprehend a concept. they become incapable of grasping a concept fully with complete comprehension. It totally mixes them up, confuses them, so they can't comprehend Chassidus properly when they try to do it because they've warped themselves. Similarly, they are far from understanding true profundity and are unable to mentally absorb it. Yeah, so therefore they can't really understand much. And they're losing that ability to understand. In general, having become accustomed to delusion and inaccurate reasoning, they cannot grasp on the principles. So then, being that the logic is flawed in what they're doing, so then they apply it into the actual Chassidus they're learning. So the way they learn Chassidus is flawed and it doesn't work. Yeah, consequently, they will never succeed in any intellectual endeavor or in the thought comprehension of a concept. So it's a harsh word. So he's saying if they do this, then they're going to lose everything. They're going to ruin themselves and try to look Chassidus. It's not going to work. And they're not going to understand Chassidus properly. And it's going to be a slippery downhill slope. Certainly, then such a person is utterly divorced from the true meditation during prayer, and it brings about no salvation at all to the soul in terms of character improvement. And therefore, he doesn't understand it properly. So therefore, for sure, he can't understand the Chassidus he's learning properly. So then, for sure, he can't meditate on the Chassidus that he's learning because he doesn't understand it properly. And then for sure, if he can't meditate on it and really connect to it, so then for sure, he can't work on himself to actually change his character traits. Because in order to change the character traits, you have to contemplate on the Chassidus you're learning and trying to apply it. But if you don't know the Chassidus properly, you don't understand it, in order to be able to apply it. Anyone who desires life for his soul must flee a Bershon away. This is from Genesis, meaning far away, far, like go away from this approach. One should seek neither to invent nor to originate, but only to learn and to understand well. And as Bjorn said yesterday, he said he talked about something. He said, learn it 100 times. And I was thinking about it after. Kuntres HaTefila talked about this beautiful sefer. You learn 100 times. He didn't mean learn 100 times so you understand it 100 times well. He meant you learn 100 times because you just have to live with it. And that's what he's talking about here. Like you learn it, a few times until you actually understand it. And then you can just you kach in it, and you're forgetting about it, and you think about it, and you meditate on it, and then it's like, wow, what does that mean? And really, you can sit on it. That's what he's saying. That's what we should focus on: learning Chassidus and understanding Chassidus, and not trying to make these no ideas, which I don't think many of us do have. One should seek neither to invent nor originate, but only to learn to understand well. Then later, when on occasion a person does perceive a new insight, possibly it may be genuine. So therefore, you might come through your davening, through doing all the right steps beforehand. You have to make sure the foundation is solid, essentially. See if our foundation is solid, as we said before, I'm pretty sure we said here that maybe isn't somewhere else. Anyway, we said that foundation of a building is in the ground. It has to be strong, but it's deep in the ground. You can't see it. So too, we have to have a strong foundation. And then when we build out, and these ideas might come to us. And if it does, by itself, so to speak, so therefore it's coming from the right place, but I did the right foundation. Results of superficial service. All of this in general is the fruit of a superficial service, in which many people stumble in various ways, in ways explained above and in others as well. All of this is due to the neglect in exerting oneself with true effort in a bona fide avodah, meaning stick to the basics, learn Chassidus, learn it well so you understand it, and then try to think about what does it mean and how to apply it to yourself. What is Rebbe trying to teach me, and how am I meant to change my life? What's the paradigm shift that I'm meant to be getting from this? And if you do that, it might come that during davening, you'll suddenly say, oh, wow, this is interesting, and this means this, and you'll connect with something, and that could be totally true, and that's totally fine. But the other way of doing it, just trying to make chidushim in davening, is not a good idea. Meaning, learn how to read the words, learn the translation, and think about what that means, and that's it. And learn the Chassidus, and try to think about the Chassidus during davening. Take some time to think at a certain point. Learn this man. What does that mean? What am I meant to work on? How can I work on myself? And that's how we're meant to do it. And that's the end of the brackets. A whole chapter of brackets. Very interesting. Summary. In this chapter, he warns us against inventing novel interpretations to the prayer text, since the effects are shallow. Explains the differences between the early Chassidim and today's youthful ones, and explains that young Chassidim must be extra cautious. Yeah, that the older Chassidim, they learn a lot of Chassidus, so then these nowadays come more natural. They want to do it themselves because they connect to it more, but it's their idea. So he's like, okay, fine. Fine. But young Chassidim shouldn't do it. They're no Chassidus. It's going to just ruin them. It's going to destroy them. We should stick to the basics, learn Chassidus, think about Chassidus, understand it well, and ask ourselves what does it mean to us and how we can apply it to ourselves. And that is the end of chapter 3. Tomorrow, chapter 4. Thank you very much for joining, everybody. Have a great day.